Late in 2010, these glimpses of Comet Hartley 2 arrived back on Earth. They were sent by NASA's Deep Impact Probe.
Two giant asteroids are coming our way right now, speeding through space at 43,000 miles an hour, and one of them is about 2.5 miles wide. It's believed to be the asteroid responsible for the first ever recorded meteorite crash that almost killed a woman 60 years ago. So to talk more about this, I'm being joined now by legal and media analyst Lionel. Lionel, my friend, for this segment, though, I'm going to call you my meteor analyst. So, all right.
And the topics get meatier and meatier.
Well, let's keep our space talk from last week going.
Yeah, yes.
We seldom hear about these giant space rocks. How come, and how dangerous might they actually be to us?
Well, let's first of all look at the big picture here, the theme of this. From an eschatology point of view, the end of times. Think about this. This, theoretically, the asteroid, meteors, this huge collision, is what gave humankind its chance, our chance. So I find that fascinating. Number two, I don't believe anything the government says about anything. Now, number three, look at what's interesting about this. Let's assume that all of a sudden, and we talked about this last week, if all of a sudden people started looking elsewhere, where governments had to cooperate with other governments, where one government had to lend a hand, where all of a sudden these weird jurisdictional differences between us, this sense of nationalism, all gave way to this collective, we're all in this together, where kumbaya meets we are the world. This is a fascinating topic, because what it does is it reminds us just how vulnerable we are, how we're just this little blue dot in the middle of nothing.
That's true. That is a good point. And you know, as we discussed last week, I think a lot of people aren't aware that there are these joint coalitions that include countries like Chile and France and even some other NATO partners, but you know, the U.S. is strangely left out. So I get why you may not believe anything that our government is telling us, especially when it comes from, you know, regarding space stuff.
And what's also, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead,
Also interesting, no, what's also interesting, too, is that, you know, we love to talk about space, but from a very infantile, a juvenescent point of view. I mean, here we are, you know, Star Wars, and that's terrific. But when it comes to really understanding how this thing works, I mean, just think about this. Something that is 2 miles wide, colliding at enormous speeds. And when you also consider this part, Who is responsible for this? Think about the legal implications. Who has jurisdiction? How do you make a claim? I mean, I'm sure somewhere in your insurance policy, you know, we always have acts of nature, force majeure, acts of providence. I mean, these are, the implications of this are so fascinating. But what's interesting is that the first thing the mainstream media says is, don't worry about it. There's no chance it's going to hit us. Well, that's good news. But just think about this. When it comes to our ability to understand our position in the world, especially when it comes to space, it's hard to believe that we know less than we do this particular topic, because we have no idea of how this thing fits in. And let me also go back to the idea, especially every now and then we'll talk about evolution and creationism. Let me just remind folks, this is how humankind came about. And many people have suggested that, believe it or not, I'm really going to blow a lot of people's minds, that maybe our genesis came from microbial data, if you will, on these asteroids that hit us, you know, millions of years ago.
Billions of years ago. Not to forget, though, not to forget, this is what took out the dinosaurs. So, but you know, according to NASA, the chances of being killed by some sort of meteorite or other things falling from space is actually about 1 in 250,000. Now, that's actually better than any state lottery. I don't care where you're at. But they also say that we can expect to see more asteroids passing Earth as in the coming years. They're just going to kind of scoot right by us. But should we actually be worried, though? How do you plan for this?
We don't get worried about stuff. We don't care about diet, health, politics, war. We don't care about cancer. Nothing bothers us. Nothing frightens us. Nothing. We will trivialize it. We will laugh about it. But what's also interesting is that one of these days, you know, there's part of me that thinks, Manila, that the governments are kind of acclimating us towards some big news. And as we said last week, one of these days, mark my words, and I hope to be on with you, when that contact is made, when you go to some anchor who looks ashen and pallid and says, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to believe this, but we have made contact. And it's not an asteroid, it's not a meteor, it's even bigger.
I hope you and I are definitely together. If and when that comes, you and me, Lionel, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
That was legal and media analyst Lionel.
Seek